Hey, what you reading there? That's not a true crime book, is it? What? No, I wasn't reading this. I was just skimming. Oh, good, because, I mean, true crime, it's like, the worst taste imaginable. And people suffering, all these lurid details of just the most heinous crimes, like, just disgusting stuff. How could anyone read that? I mean, it's the worst taste. I don't know how people read that crap. Oh, yeah, no, I totally agree. It's such crap, really bad taste. I don't know how people read true crime. Hey everybody, welcome back to this week's edition of Read More. This week I decided to focus on a subgenre, Dewey number 364, near and dear to my heart, true crime. Now, I know it's not for everyone, in which case, maybe don't watch the video. If you're not really into true crime, maybe I can make the case for you to pick up a title or two, see if it's for you. I remember I was 12 and my mom took me on a trip to Alcatraz, and I can't even remember the name of the book now, but it's one of these cheap mass market paperbacks about a guy's experience committing a crime, getting sentenced, and going to Alcatraz back in the day. And again, I was probably 11 or 12, and I've been reading true crime ever since. It's fair to say true crime is having actually a pretty hot moment right now in pop culture. I'm going to touch on that a little bit later, just some thoughts and ideas I want to put out there. Two titles to kick things off. For some of you, these aren't surprises at all. Say Nothing, a true story of murder and memory in Northern Ireland. It's Killers of the Flower Moon. This one, a huge bestseller a couple years back. Haven't started this one yet, really looking forward to it. If you've read it, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. But I did just finish Say Nothing, and all I have to say is, wow! This book will, if you know nothing about the conflict in Northern Ireland and Irish republicanism, different things between Catholics and Protestants, it's at once an introductory kind of text and also really in-depth. So whether you know nothing or a little bit or a lot, I think there's something here for everyone, following what's essentially a war crime, but some of the events and incidents going back to the Troubles in Ireland really walk that line between criminality and war crimes. Not that we're going to make the distinction on this platform. Victims, and how sometimes for families of victims, the arc of justice spans not only decades, but across international waters to different countries. This story is just unbelievable. What is it about, Trevor? Just to recap, a mother of several children in hand-to-mouth Belfast in the early mid-70s goes missing, and the book profiles several different people involved in the Troubles in Northern Ireland, and it takes a long route to come back around. Decades later, we're talking more than 30 years later, of just who was responsible for this woman's disappearance. It's utterly fascinating. It's a history book, but it's also true crime. Believe the hype with Say Nothing. I've seen the library. I put off reading about it for a long time because, you know, it's heavy stuff reading about some of this material, but absolutely a book that when I was done, I wanted to keep reading more about the topic. Okay, so my thoughts on the kind of true crime moment right now. You know, we had the podcast Serial a few years ago that really kicked things off for a lot of people. And then there was S-Town. I've listened to Serial, not S-Town. And then we had different shows like Making a Murderer and The Jinx. We could go on and on. But in the world of books, it's fair to say right now we are in a post-Michelle McNamara moment. Of course, the author of I'll Be Gone in the Dark, the true crime story narrative of the Golden State Killer, also known as the East Area Rapist and the original Night Stalker. Definitely a spooky read. I think I was scared out of my mind and double checking the locks on my house for weeks after reading I'll Be Gone in the Dark. I know it fascinated a lot of readers at the library. And now, of course, there is an HBO series detailing Michelle's work and following that case over the years as an amateur sleuth. The really important thing, though, with Michelle McNamara is this sort of tying of memoir and true crime together, in that people more than ever are kind of going over their own personal stories and where they intersect with crimes in the past, however long ago they need to dig. And it's kind of opened up this new subgenre of memoir and biography with true crime. The important thing, of course, is with memoir, you don't need to quite do the amount of research you might have had to do with an actual investigative true crime piece. The publishing company, I think, loves this, but that's not to say a lot of these titles are really great. I wanted to mention a few on here. Some of them I have not read, but just to give you an idea of where I'm going with this idea of a new subgenre. Alligator Candy by David Kushner. You All Grow Up and Leave Me, a memoir of teenage obsession. After the Eclipse by Sarah Perry. And The Hot One by Carolyn Murnick. One I'm reading right now I want to draw people's attention to is Mean by Myriam Gurba. Now, Gurba is a bit of a controversy herself. There was a book last year called American Dirt that got quite a lot of attention and acclaim when all of a sudden critics and audiences sort of reversed course when it was revealed, the person writing the book, it's the story of Mexican immigrants, and a lot of people were calling the book into question about, well, how authentic can this be, telling the story of immigrants coming from Mexico to America when the author themselves is not of Mexican American descent or Mexican descent. That's not for me to really maybe dive into here, but I wanted to draw people's attention to Gurba because she sort of led the charge in making folks really question American Dirt. And this is her own book I mean to draw some attention to. It's called Mean, and kind of details her story intersecting with a crime that occurred in her past. She herself was the victim, and it blurring the lines between true crime and memoir. So I'll leave it to you what you guys think of this sort of book. Like I said, you don't have to do quite the amount of research, but it does allow people to tell their stories and for victims and survivors to come out new ways of giving the narrative in some of these things. One I did just wrap up recently, this is more the classic, trashy, it's well written, that's not in question, just more, this is the sort of book that's not for everyone. It's that classic true crime, American Predator. Ugh. This is the story, the hunt for the most meticulous serial killer of the 21st century. Really rough stuff, but it is suspenseful from the law enforcement perspective. They had to catch this guy. His name was Israel Keys. I hadn't heard of him. He was apprehended in 2012, and it is just gut-wrenching. The library owns this one. Do think about placing it on hold if you want a really outrageous, really tough, and urgent effort to catch an absolute predator. Okay, finally, the highlight of today's video. This is a newer book. Yes, the library does have copies. It's called Unspeakable Acts. This book I cannot recommend you more than enough to true crime fans. It is a collection of essays and narratives of not only just true crime cases, kind of giving you that fix, but also just really cool, thoughtful nonfiction pieces that examine the true crime moment right now. Let me just give you a for instance on some of these that you'll find in the table of contents. One is The Ethical Dilemma of Highbrow True Crime, kind of cutting apart you know, for people who liked Serial, but they don't like things like American Predator. And what does that mean, right? So kind of a cultural studies thing. Did you know, for instance, I didn't know, blood spatter analysis really is not up to snuff in the world of forensics. They talk about it in here. Really, really powerful piece, What Bullets Do to Bodies by Jason Fagone. A piece that goes over a hospital in Philadelphia's fight to help gunshot wound victims and explaining in medical detail what happens to a person when they're shot. And so when these TV shows and these movies just show gun violence nilly-willy, it's really a moral reckoning to stop. What are we talking about? What happens when a bullet meets a body? And to me, it's just like absolutely really responsible journalism, making people think and talk about this. Another really great piece in Unspeakable Acts, children found as a result of that old, back in the day, Soul Asylum video, Runaway Train. All you 90s kids, for those who don't know, Soul Asylum was a 90s band. They had this big hit with a song called Runaway Train. And in the music video, like the milk cartons of yore, they flashed different pictures of missing children throughout the United States. And there were teens and kids that were actually found as a result of the music video. I had no idea. Lastly, really a great piece about the disparity between searches of the missing when it's a rich white person who goes missing versus the color of their skin, the sexual orientation, and the gender identity. Examines two different cases where the response between the public and law enforcement was just wildly different, and kind of an urgent call to action. How we talk about true crime, how we talk about victim stories and narratives. I loved this book. Can't recommend it more. I can't recommend it more to people who love true crime. Just so much to think about, and let me know your thoughts if you've read it. Unspeakable Acts, edited by Sarah Weinman. From the intro to the very end, I couldn't put it down. That is true crime this week. Read more, keep reading, stay safe out there. I'll see you guys next time.